Thank you. This ZiG, it's a currency that has just been introduced a few days ago.
Mm-hmm.
And it's said that, number one, it is linked to gold. Number two, it is also linked to other assets beyond gold. And three, it is also linked to other formal currencies, maybe hard currencies like the US dollar and others. That is, currencies that constitute the foreign exchange reserves. So it's a currency that is linked to assets like gold and also assets like foreign exchange reserves. Right. So let's move away from that and look at the mechanics of how it was conceived.
Mm-hmm.
So I did an independent calculation of how the ZiG came about. And what I'm happy about is the fact that I reached the same, I got the same output when I did an independent calculation of using the variables, some of the variables that they provided. Right. One ZiG is said to be equal to 1 milligram of gold. One milligram of gold. Now, gold, if you go to your TV screen every day, you see the gold price. The gold price is priced at 1 fine ounce. The 1 fine ounce of gold, I think a few days ago when I did the calculation, it was $23.86. If my memory serves me right, I can check the figure. So 1 fine ounce of gold was $23.86 US dollar. Now, 1 ZiG is equal to 1 milligram of gold.
Mm-hmm.
1 fine ounce of gold is equal to 31,100 milligrams of gold. Now, if you take 1 milligram divided by 31,100 milligrams, multiplying that by the price of gold, you get the dollar value of the ZiG.
Mm-hmm.
So at 1 divided by 31,100 multiplied by the gold price of 23.86, if my memory serves me right, you will get a figure of 0.075 dollars.
0.075.
Yeah, 0.075. That's what you get. That is the US dollar value of the ZiG at calculated level.
Okay.
Yes. So I've already recounted the formula. 1 milligram divided by 31,100 milligrams of gold that make up 1 fine ounce. We do have the price of a fine ounce. Therefore, 1 milligram divided by 31,100 times the gold price, you get the dollar value of 1 ZiG. Now, with the dollar value of the 1 ZiG, you can then convert that to the Zim dollar. Now, if you take your 0.075 divide by $1, because we know that on the day of the exchange rate, on the day of the conception of the ZiG, the exchange rate was 1 is to 30,000. That is the value that they used. Now, 0.75 divided by $1 times 30,000 Zim dollars, you will get a figure of 22,050 Zim dollars. Technically, that should be the value of the ZiG. But however, the authorities in their algorithm then took the 2250 figure and divided it. They then took 30,000 and divided by 2250. Then they got 13.33, the figure that they got is a result of dividing the 30,000 divided by the Zim dollar component of the ZiG using that formula. Just in simple terms, 0.75 divided by $1 times the what? 0.75 divided by $1 times times that figure of 30,000, you will get 2250. That 2250 divided back to 30,000, you get 13,000. 1:13. That is the figure.
So, according to the authorities in Zimbabwe, 1 ZiG is how much?
1 ZiG in Zim dollar terms is 1 ZiG is about 13.5.
No. In terms of US dollar.
1 ZiG will be in the neighborhood of 0.075. Or if you reduce your decimals, it will be around about 0.08.
Okay.
Yeah. So that is the US dollar part.
Yeah.
That is the US dollar value of the ZiG. Now you want to then convert it to Zim dollars. So that is the formula that I was that you can use, where you then take that 0.075 divided by $1 times the 30,000, which is the exchange rate. Then you will get a figure. They took that figure, 250, divided it, took 30,000 divided by the 2250 figure. Then they got 13.
They got 13.
So, in other words, there was some rationality in reaching the value. There was some rationality. There is some algorithm that they use. There's some calculation, which, as I'm saying to you, I calculated independently, and I reached that same figure. Right. Having said that, my contention is that, yes, there is some rationality. Yes, there is some degree of link with the state assets like gold. It touches on US dollar, it touches on the price of gold, etc. So all these factors went into the formula that eventually give us that 1:13. The question of whether or not there are real assets that back that up is a question for another day, which me and you can discuss in the program. But for now, I would say my opinion is that there was some rationality that went into its calculation, and therefore it's a currency that is worth supporting, and I will tell you why. Currencies, by their very nature, they are products of some compromise. If I look at the Botswana currency is algorithmed to the IMF currencies, the SDR, at 55% and 45% to the South African rand. The weighted average of those, it gives you the value of the Botswana currency. With a standard deviation, it can vary within a certain threshold, but that is what gives you the Botswana currency as things stand. Now, if you look at the euro, which is used by all the 20-something countries in Europe, was the euro, the effector was the German mark. The Deutsche Mark is the one that was used to formulate the euro, and everybody to abide by the rules around the German mark. It is the currency that gave birth to the euro. So currencies, by their very nature, they are always products of compromise, as it were. So because of that rationality, my argument is that this currency, this ZiG, deserves support. As I stated in the beginning, the value of a currency depends on the confidence that the people give it. If the people give it the support at 1:13, it has the potential of turning their lives around, turning the economy around, and putting the problems of the past behind them. Linked to, it was backed by some USD 200 million from Afrexim Bank. But when questions were asked as to the whereabouts of that 200 million, it was nowhere to be found. So the answer is there was no link with any currency. And so the ZiG as I said, there is some rationality that went into its making, into its algorithm. There was some rationality. The question as to whether it's really linked or not, it's a question that we can always revisit down the line. We can always discuss it maybe in our next episode when we do the calculations further.
Okay.
Yeah.
But in terms of rationality using the algorithms, you feel that they did well?
I take into account the fact that currencies, the US dollar as it stands today, took Nixon in 1971, he merely, through a stroke of a pen, changed things around where the value of the US dollar was dependent on the value of gold. He just things around and delinked the US dollar from gold and made the value of gold to be, he made gold to be valued in US dollar terms. So currencies are products of some abracadabra, if I were to put it that way. Then the outcome of that magic or sophistry, it all depends on whether the markets goes with it or they dispute it. If the market embraces it, here it goes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So on that score, that's why I'm saying this ZiG is worth people supporting it.
Mm-hmm. All right. Looking at or comparing ZiG to other currencies in the region, for example, the Botswana Pula, how is it faring?
That's a very good question. Because of the fact that the Botswana Pula itself is a product of a link between the IMF SDR currency at 55% and the South African rand at 45%. So the value of the Pula, it derives from its value from 55% of the SDR currency and 45% of the rand. The weighted average of that makes up the Pula. So the Pula itself is an algorithm which is calculated out of this, as I said, with a degree of standard deviation. It can vary a few points up or down, but by and large, it must be guided by that. What is interesting is the fact that as of today, the exchange rate between the US dollar and the Pula is 13 point. And the ZiG came out as well right at its inception, and even through my calculation, at 1:13 point. So the Pula is 1:13, the ZiG is 1:13. So technically, it means the ZiG and the Pula, they are 1-to-1, if you like. So it's a very good comparison. And then somebody who wants to track the value of the ZiG can use the Pula as it's synthetic. You can synthetically track the Pula and see how the ZiG is doing. Is the ZiG now weaker than the Pula, or is it stronger than the Pula? So you can track it using the Pula, because at inception, as I've said, they are currently both 1:13 to the dollar. The ZiG is 1:13 and the Pula is 1:13. So you can track them henceforth and see which one is doing better or which one is deteriorating. So the Pula is a very good comparison. It's a good currency, synthetic currency to use to track the ZiG.
Okay. What are the chances of success of the ZiG currency?
Me and you have already discussed, Mr. Babunkala, that the value of a currency is a function of the confidence it enjoys from the people, from the markets. The markets being consumers, buyers, and sellers. So any currency, whether it's a US dollar, it's a rand, it's a Chinese yuan, or Japanese yen, etc., all of them, the values attached to them are dependent on the confidence that they get from the markets. Now, the ZiG, the success or failure of the ZiG lies in the hands of the people, of primarily the people of Zimbabwe. If they go into the J.J. Rousseau social contract and say, okay, let's put the problems of the past behind and support this currency at 1:13 and give it the necessary confidence that it deserves, then the currency can succeed. But if we both lose confidence and we throw our hands up in the air and think, then it will fail.
Yeah,
Of
because
course,
from what you are saying, oh, sorry.
The monetary authorities have to be responsible. They must not excessively print the currency, because we've already said that the excessive printing of the currency will invariably make it lose value as well. It will cause it to lose people's confidence once they excessively print it. So there has to be some degree of trust, some responsibility, there has to be accountability, has to be some transparency, etc., etc. And these are factors that the monetary authorities, that is the RBZ and the relevant authorities, they really have to be seen to be scrupulous when it comes to this.
Yeah. You seem to place the burden of success of these currencies on the shoulders of consumers or on the shoulders of the market. I'm just wondering, where do you place the economy? How does the economy link? Can a currency succeed without the economy succeeding?
If you remember in the beginning of our discussion, we said a currency is the lubricant that oils the wheels of the economy. So without a currency, the wheels, they fall off, the whole locomotive grinds to a halt. That is the economy. The economy can't move. So the currency is the blood, is the equivalent of a blood in a biological organism like the body of a human being. The economy is like water. The currency is like water. Hence, we refer to money as liquidity.
Mm-hmm.
So the currency is central to the success of the economy.
Okay, all right. You have said that the ZiG currency, from the way it has been conceived and calculated, it seems if people have confidence in it, it might be a success story. Do you think, is there any alternative to ZiG? Something that could be introduced which you feel could be better than ZiG?
I don't want to prejudge the ZiG.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just a small fraction of the market myself. But the history of money in Zimbabwe shows that in the past, when the Rhodesian economy was using the British pound de facto, disguised as a Rhodesian dollar, the economy was thriving. We fast forward to 2009, when they introduced the US dollar anchored multi-currency system. The economy was thriving again. We saw suddenly shops were full, etc. So the dollarization will always be a default position in the event that the ZiG fails. And the ZiG can only fail if the authorities excessively print it. They print day and night, especially at night, under cover of darkness. If they print a lot of it and the markets lose confidence in it, and then inflation, hyperinflation will ravage it and it will die like all other currencies. Then the alternative, the only better alternative will be the US dollar, even though it's got pains of its own. It brings some pains to some people. Yeah.
You spoke about the Rand monetary union, something like that. Is it not something that could be an alternative?
The example that I've used for the US dollar or the British pound will still apply to the Rand as well.
No, what I'm trying to get to is, if we decided to join the Rand union,
The union,
wouldn't that work?
Yes, that would work, but we know that for political reasons, yeah, and such questions as such, the usually cited factors like sovereignty and all of those things, and independence and all, which do not make sense to me, because if I look at the whole of Europe, France, Germany, Netherlands, Belgium, all those countries, they no longer have currencies of their own. Those are proud nations. But the French had to do away with the franc. The Dutch, they did away with their Dutch currency. The Belgians, everybody, they came together under one currency. So, questions of saying if you join the Rand, therefore sovereignty and all of those things, they don't mean much, really.
What about linking the ZiG to the US currency? Doesn't that affect the sovereignty of the country?
It doesn't necessarily. Remember, the US dollar is an international trading currency for trade.
Okay.
It was given that status at the 1944 Bretton Woods peace conference. So a resolution was taken by countries at a UN, the equivalent of a UN level at the time, to say the US dollar is an international currency. So that's why China, Russia, Japan, everybody uses the US dollar for international trade. It's because of that. The same applies to gold. Gold was also given the same status. I would have thought that maybe as an alternative, the question which you asked, one could say, why don't we use gold as a currency, as opposed to a gold-backed currency? Because there's a difference between a gold-backed currency and a gold currency.
What are the differences, and how will that work? Let's say, wouldn't it be too heavy? How will it work?
Okay. Currently, the ZiG is said to be gold-backed.
Yeah.
So it will be a paper currency or coins that supposedly are linked to some gold somewhere, right? That is gold-backed. But we say the question of whether that gold is there or not, me and you will follow it up maybe in our next episode.
Yeah.
So we pack that. But a gold currency, what it means is that Ubabu Unkala, when you walk out of your studio, if we are using the gold currency, you've got the gold currency in your back pocket, directly as gold, as a coin which is made up of pure gold. That is a gold currency. So if you want to buy an ox, and an ox costs 10,000 US dollars, you would need 5 of those coins, because currently a fine ounce of gold, which is the size of a 2 rand South African coin, if you know the 2 rand. So the 1 ounce is the size of the 2 rand, but made up of gold. So you need only 5 of those. They'll give you 10,000 US dollars. That will be enough to buy you an ox. So a gold currency, it means you are using gold directly as a currency. You get into the counter, you pay for your beer or for your Coca-Cola with a coin, a gold coin.
Okay.
Yeah, it's in your back pocket. When you sleep, Just like some certain presidents, you put it under your mattress or under the sofa.
Yeah. Right. Okay.
And when you don't want it, you can smelt it and use it for your wedding ring. You
Yeah.
can smelt, use it for chain. You can use it for earrings or for gold tooth or anything.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. No, thanks very much, Mr. Ndlovu. Is there anything you would like to share with us concerning the ZiG currents before we close this session?
I would say that this ZiG, it provides a new opportunity. I would say people can give it a chance, give it the necessary support that it needs. Maybe it is an opportunity for the country to turn its circumstances around, and people can look, people have really suffered in the past 20, 30 years, or since 1980. If I were to put me and you know better, since 1980, the people have been going through hell. Therefore, it could be a turning point in their monetary history, and I would strongly push that people give it the necessary support. We have nothing to lose. We've already lost everything.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, thanks very much, Mr. Ndlovu. We hope that we will monitor how the ZiG currents progresses. Then in the near future, we will come back and reassess and reevaluate its progress. Otherwise, thanks very much for coming onto Matilda Broadcasting Corporation, the big conversation program.
Thank you, sir. Much appreciated.
Thanks
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you to your listeners.
So
Thank you.
see you.
Thank you.